the other person could have, let's say, a red mark or a scratch. Hey there, this is David Kohlmeyer, the problem solver, a retired police officer, helping people one problem at a time. Thanks so much for joining this week's episode of The Problem Solver. Today I have my co-host, John Orlando, the legend, the podcast guru.
You're running out of compliments.
Amazing guy in general, basically helping the Problem Solver show every week. Then today we have an awesome guest, Dave Burlin with Bunker Labs. Thanks for being involved in the podcast today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
So today, for some of the viewers and the listeners, basically we have Social Register, which is a networking group. How long have you been part of Social Register?
Yeah, so I've actually known about Social Register for a little over a year. I think I attended one of their events when I first moved here almost 3 years ago. But recently we've partnered with them because what we've done is a sort of a cause marketing campaign. So every time somebody buys one of their higher level memberships, we'll make one available to a veteran in our program.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Where did you move here from?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
A little different.
Yeah. A lot different.
A lot different.
So what exactly Bunker Labs, which is an unusual name, tell me a little bit about what Bunker Labs does.
Yeah, so Bunker Labs, the mission is for us to help veterans and their spouses start and grow businesses. So we provide resources. We have a partnership with WeWork. Now, this is a national program, so we're all across the United States. We're in about 30 communities, and basically everywhere there's a community that has a WeWork. We have our flagship program, which is the Veterans and Residents Program. We invite a veteran and their spouse that have businesses to apply to get into our program. We accept up to 10 every 6 months, and then we give them office space. We connect them with resources. I actually facilitate weekly huddles to keep them in the pocket of growing their businesses. And just so you know, it is a national program. We don't run on different cycles. We're all in the same cycle. So there's actually 35 communities all across the country going through it at the same time.
Wow.
That's amazing. John, this is the whole point. There's so many nonprofits that are out there. Like nobody knows what's out there.
I
Like,
know.
if there was a veteran, I didn't know about this program.
Yeah.
Now that I know about it, I'm like, hey, you got to get with this program, you know? There's so many veterans that are out there that probably need some guidance and help. Is there any grant money, like if someone wanted to open up a business, do they get grant money as well for being a veteran or no?
Yeah, so coming through our program, we don't have any direct resources. Now, all the time we have different people stepping up in a million different ways, locally and nationally, that can pitch competitions, things like that. We do try to let people know about grants that are happening. We don't directly fund the businesses that come through. We do give them office space, connect them to resources, and facilitate the programming. But it's a hodgepodge of all kinds of resources where every week everyone's throwing out all the stuff that they're learning about. We're always learning about new grants. We're plugging the veterans into that.
Got it.
There's all kinds of community boards where they can hear about it, apply for it, or in some cases pitch for it as well.
So one of the
great.
things myself with the Problem Solver, and John owns Sticky Paws Studio, we were talking about helping veterans and doing some different programs. So this is great in general. He was actually asking whether or not I had any veteran friends that wanted to do like a weekly podcast, and maybe there was grants available to basically like subsidize or pay for the podcast, and then help them basically grow a business with sponsorship and maybe a website and maybe T-shirts. Like there's two gentlemen that are like very Trump supporters, but they're military. I forgot their names. You know what I'm talking about? They're always like talking about
Like Dan Crenshaw or something like
no,
that?
the twin brothers, the Hodges.
Oh. Yeah, the
Hodge brothers, right? The Hodge brothers.
Yeah.
Because they're both military, and they have a show, a podcast, and they sell their shirts and so on. But I know that he mentioned that he wanted to help veterans, at the studio here. How would that work? Like, if we had some veterans that wanted to do like a weekly podcast, and they have a website that would sell shirts. How would that work with you if we couldn't partner together?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the ability at the local level to partner with any organization that's going to help us move forward. When we get into big national sponsorships, that's a little bit different, right? So like Cosmopolitan is one of our sponsors here, but it's a local thing. We have like Chase Bank, a lot of big sponsors. But for local partnerships, right, we can basically do whatever we want.
That's great.
I actually have a podcast, so I'm a volunteer for this organization, right? I volunteer a lot of my time. I get a lot of benefits from being part of that program. I also get office space. But hey, I'm also a veteran entrepreneur myself, right? I'm a speaker, coach, consultant. I have a podcast. One of the guys going through our program right now, he has a podcast.
What's your podcast called?
My podcast is called the Dave Means Business Podcast.
I like it.
Yeah. So I talk
Accurate.
I talk about all things business. I work with a lot of different entrepreneurs, influencers, authors that have inspired me along my way. I just connect them to the remarkable people in my network
great.
and share their stories.
How long you been doing it?
I started during the pandemic, like a lot of people. It was one of those, I'm going to do a podcast for like years. And then the podcast actually gave me the freedom and the time to say, let's just do this. So like the first person I had on my podcast, also a veteran, a guy named Lee Cockrell. Now, he's a little bit older. Most people don't know Lee, but he was actually the VP of operations for all of Disney.
Wow.
Right. So he wrote the Disney leadership principles, a lot of that stuff. He's a personal friend of mine. He's from Oklahoma, right? He's a poor farm kid from Oklahoma. We got connected on another project, have stayed friends since then. So those are some of the people
It's amazing.
that I love spending time with.
So you did serve. You are military.
Yeah, Marine Corps veteran.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. Hey, you know what, real quick, before, were you a veteran as well? Every time somebody says, thank you for your service, I say, I don't know if you bleep this out or not, I say, think a fucking cop, right? And I only say that because you guys put on a different uniform, and I have so much respect for everything that you guys do, because it's one thing, it's easy to go show up in somebody else's house and be that person, but whenever it's like your backyard, it's a different kind of Baghdad for you guys.
It's funny you say that, because as a cop of 17 years, I feel when people say that to me, I'm always like, thank the military. Like, forget the police thing. Because some people say, like, when we get awards as cops, people say you get paid to do that job. But I mean, you don't have to, like, you know. But a lot of cops in different states don't get paid well. I moved out to Vegas actually because it was one of the highest paying cities, which was Henderson, Vegas, for police and no state and city tax and so on. As a New York City cop, I was being paid nothing and being shot at in a very bad area 20 years ago. But it's interesting when people say that, because I kind of feel when they say thank you for your service. One thing I didn't like, I was just sharing with you because you're military. When 9/11 happened, I worked 9/11 and I was across the bridge in Brooklyn. But when I worked at Grand Central Terminal, sometimes people would pay for your meal and you didn't know about it. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you're eating, and
I do it all the time.
People pay for a meal. But after 9/11, I felt bad because the cops that died, I mean, I'm eating a free meal because basically I'm alive. But the cop that died, I kind of felt weird. Like, I'm eating because I'm alive, and the cops that died during 9/11. So I always felt weird with it. I mean, I understand what people are trying to do, but to me, the military, I mean, going to Afghanistan and going to these other countries and being away from your family and sacrificing there. But, you know.
Well, you both obviously recognize what it is, and you understand the consequences, or what could be potential consequences for the jobs that you've done. You know, I mean, it's
100%.
It's not for everyone, you know.
People always ask, it's funny, they always ask you military, and I always say, you know, like Marines and Army and so on. My joke was back in the day was, I was NYPD, because NYPD is like 1 out of 30,000 officers, right? So it's almost like an army. It is an army, and sometimes there's, if you look up armies, 30,000 is more than some armies in other countries. Yeah. So I was one out of like 40,000. I think at the time it was like 42,000 police officers in New York City. So I was one of 42,000. So I was like, it's you know, like military, Air Force, Marines, NYPD. So it was one of the jokes because there's so many.
Hey, we all fight for red, white, and blue, though.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
Real quickly, so the bottom line is you helping veterans different ways, which is awesome. I'm so glad that we're meeting today. I want to help other veterans. I know John does as well, so we could sit and talk next week or something like that and
100%.
figure out how we could help each other and help people, especially help veterans. It's not easy, so to give them some guidance, a program, a business. So we definitely would like to help out myself, and I know John does too. So we could figure that out in general. Anything that you want to share for veterans that are listening, or anyone that wants to help a veteran, is there anything that they can do?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to know for all veterans out there is that veterans have the skills to be successful in entrepreneurship. The skills that they learned in the military are applicable into startups. They're applicable to go work for other organizations.
They might be best suited for it than anyone else. Structure.
Here's the thing that I see is some people, and this comes from every branch of military, some people color very much inside the lines. Some people color outside the lines. But both of those people, both of those archetypes are very effective. So whether they go work for an organization, if that's what they're designed for, man, I've scaled companies all across the United States, but I don't color inside the lines. I broke belief barriers with an organization. It was a wedding DJ business in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They didn't think that was scalable. And to me, I'm like, everything's scalable, right? That's dates on the calendar, and we just got to train people really well. And I helped grow that business into 5 cities, right? They're in 12 cities now. So some people are designed to work inside of an organization and take them further than they're even capable of. But some people create things, right? The thing is that we have the mindset, we have the attitude, we have the skills to really build things and grow things and get people working together. So I think that's the most important thing. But there's two conversations in the world of veteran transition. Now, I'm really thankful and honored to have great mentors who have inspired me along the way. The first public talk that I ever did was a TEDx talk, and it was about veteran transition. Right? So I've been talking about veteran transition since 2014. There's two sides of it. There's people that go down the route of post-traumatic stress, and there's people that go down the road of post-traumatic growth. It's a mindset thing, right? There's a lot of programs out there that give backpacks, and I'm not saying these are bad. There's a lot that help homeless veterans, but that's all post-traumatic stress. Like if they feed that dog gets stronger, and that conversation, that ends in suicide, right? On the other side, post-traumatic growth, there is no end. The possibilities are endless. And with that, we want to give people the ability to learn how to fish. Instead of just giving them a fish. So we're teaching them the skills. We're teaching them how to launch ideas. We're teaching them how to go from idea to income. We want to make sure that people take charge of their transition wherever they're at. And in my opinion, it's the visibility of that success that inspires other veterans to say, you know what, I've got an idea, and maybe I can try that too.
Yeah, it's great.
You know, there's a guy named Paul Marino who basically runs a program called Sober Homies. He always says this saying, which I really like, is that he wants to basically give people, instead of a hand out, but a hand up.
Hand up.
And I love that saying that he says that, and he's helping people that have basically been in jail or addiction and stuff like that, and he runs a program helping homeless and people that basically have addictions in Las Vegas. You know, you're very passionate. What I see through your eyes is that your passion is also because you have military background. You're using like your logistics background,
100%.
And basically you're helping plan people different ways. So I think that's amazing. Number one. So having any veteran with you probably will be able to succeed. I do agree with you in regards to like the people that give the backpacks, which isn't necessarily kind of evil. You are feeding them to be homeless. You're saying, okay, take this blanket. I know the Salvation Army does that. They have the backpacks and so on, but you're helping them basically be homeless. You're not helping them. But I know some people it's hard, right? I mean, it's not the easiest situation. I've been in the tunnels and I met veterans down there in general, but it's interesting to hear your perspective because I do believe by doing these different programs to help people, you know, we don't want them to do suicide. Suicide rates are extremely high with military. So I think it's great. There's probably needs to be a lot more people like yourself being, you know, retired military, helping people in such a positive momentum.
Yeah, well, and it's like you said, mindset, right? I mean, that's the key to everything. It's like if you give them a backpack and it's like you're basically training them to not give up, but accept where they're at and use this as a tool to make where you're at more comfortable rather than getting their mindset in a frame of, no, you're more than this, right?
Well, the thing is not everyone is always going to be in the right mindset to receive and apply some of those things.
Sure.
So all I'm saying is, and again, this is not to knock any nonprofit. I've been on a lot of interviews where I tell people don't start another nonprofit, things like that. It's not about that. There are some things where if you're going to give stuff, give it, because sometimes survival is where we have to be.
For sure.
But if you're going to give a backpack, you know what you should put in that backpack?
Self-improvement book?
A book.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I started at Bunker Lab, so we opened this chapter, me and another guy, Mario. It was the summer of 2019. Right, we held our first event in October of 2019 with all the ambition. We got local sponsors. We did another one in February, and our next big event was going to be our big ribbon cutting on top of the Cosmopolitan in May of 2020.
And the world ended.
We know that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So we've had to brand everything behind the curtain. Like what was going to be 200 people up on the rooftop was 5 people on a virtual round table that nobody really cared about. So I had to get creative. So I love books. I love reading books. The most powerful thing that people have ever put in my hand is a book to say, hey, you can do something different.
Yep.
So I started this idea. It's called the Veteran Entrepreneur Library. And every conversation that I have with new people talking about Bunker Labs, I'm trying to add another book to that shelf. It's an inventory to say, this is how many conversations our community has had. So it's not about somebody saying, oh, I've got 100 books.
Right.
No, I mean, I just want 1 or 2 from people. What are the books that have inspired you the most? We've hit like 40 or 50 in the last, since January.
Is David Goggins' book on that list?
Somebody has donated his book, which, by the way, I saw him running.
He lives out here.
I know.
He's a savage. He lives out here.
It was the it was one of the most overwhelming experiences.
Yeah.
Now I've got to sit in the presence of a lot of really, really amazing people in my life, but like if I ran into him like at the airport, it would be weird and he would be uncomfortable.
Right.
I saw him running.
Yeah.
And I had to pull.
You ran after him?
No.
Do you know who he is? Do you know? Are you
I had to
familiar with
pull
David
over.
Goggins?
I had to pull over my car and like catch my breath because it was
I'm
that
with you.
overwhelming.
He's amazing. He was when I screw this up, correct me, okay? He was a Navy SEAL. Came out of the Navy SEALs. He became an Army Ranger.
I think I've heard of that.
He runs these like ultra marathons. Yep. I think he literally had a heart attack. Went to the hospital like on the mile. I don't know what mile. Let's say halfway. Ultra marathon like 100-mile race, right?
Yep.
Around the 50-mile marker, he has a heart attack. Goes to the hospital. Would be game over, right? No, he gets treated. He comes right back in, finishes the race. I mean,
He also broke the world record for pull-ups.
Pull-ups in 24 hours,
like 4,000 plus,
which he mathematically figured out before he did. Like, okay,
he failed it.
Right.
I think 2 times before he actually broke it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
how old is he now?
Savage.
40-something.
He's like 22. I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. I have no idea.
Yeah, he is a straight up beast.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Did you say that you wrote a book?
No, I've not written a book. There's one here. It's in the works, and I'm putting that stuff together. But there's a handful of things I've got to do before I write my first book. So right now I'm in that phase of learning, growing. I'm pulling all the stories together and making sure that it's.
What would the book be about?
So for me, it's all about building relationships. I mean, the whole way that I've accomplished anything in this life is by building solid relationships. I've found that, we're here in a networking organization.
Yeah.
I found that networking is very important. You know, it's not just what you know, it's about who you know.
Yeah.
But I've found that most people still turn that into a transactional thing.
100%.
So I've tried to take that same sales process that most people fall into and create principles. And the only thing that I'm trying to do is unlock more relationships because to me, networking isn't about getting the next invoice.
Yep.
It's about unlocking infinite opportunities in every person you meet.
Too many people are closer oriented, which I get the importance of that, but they're missing out on because back like I tell you with social media, if you focus on building brand, everything falls into place. And it's the same thing with networking, right? You're building brand by just providing value to the potential customer or person you're networking with. When you provide value, it will always come back. Sometimes it takes longer, but you'll have way stronger relationships.
Well, for me, and everyone tells me, oh, it's a numbers game. That's great. If you, out of 100 people, you might close 2. But you also closed all the opportunities with those other 98.
Yep.
And it's a numbers game on the other side. If you go into every situation expecting nothing in return, for every person you meet, you unlock 100 opportunities that may not happen today, may not happen tomorrow. But man, I've had calls that have happened 5 years later where somebody's like, hey, I remember this random conversation that I had with you at a book club meeting at 5 o'clock in the morning in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You need to meet this person. And that one person unlocks.
Yeah. And sometimes I think people don't realize the value in someone sending an email or placing a call on your behalf is way more powerful sometimes than you closing them on what you're trying to sell them.
True.
You know, which is basically how we met, right? Like we went to lunch. Like it wasn't about what am I doing for you? What are you doing for me? It was more of a discovery period of like, how are we going to help each other and who do we know, right?
So we're going to finish up, but I want to do a challenge for you.
Yeah.
If you write a book, the first 100 books I will buy, and then you will distribute to all veterans.
I love it.
So that's your challenge. So you get back to me when it's done.
I love it.
The first 100 books you got to distribute to all veterans to help veterans, and you have to sign the 100 books. We'll do a signing here as well. We can invite veterans, and we'll do an event here when you have your book.
Let's do it.
Like it?
I love
I'm
it.
down.
All right. Any information you want to give out to any of the viewers and listeners? I already forgot. I'm losing my train of thought now. I'm getting later and tired. You want to give any information, phone number, website, stuff like that out to any viewers and listeners? Because eventually what I'm going to do with yours is I'm going to put yours out to the Facebook, the different veteran groups.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. So my name's Dave Burlin. There's not many of them, so I got lucky with that. You can find me on Instagram at Dave Burlin. Also on LinkedIn, working on the website. There's been some overhaul because I'm relaunching season 2 of the podcast. By the way, tomorrow morning, as of this recording, I'm actually interviewing the CEO of Bunker Labs, who's
cool.
also a Marine Corps veteran. So season 2 is coming out. Everything's going to be going through DaveMeansBusiness.com, which all that stuff will be back up and running again soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was great information. We'll definitely maybe meet up the next week or two. We'll figure out how we can work with veterans, help them. You're going to work on your book. I'm going to buy 100 books. We'll do a signing here. We'll do the podcast when you have your book. We'll talk about the book. And that sounds like a deal, right?
I love it. Let's
go. A little bit of a challenge. Anyway, I'm Dave Kohlmeyer, the problem solver, helping people one problem at a time. Today I gave an amazing challenge. We're going to have some books out hopefully in less than 6 months is going to be the challenge. 100 books going to be basically going out to veterans, helping them basically build relationships, build business, and also helping them with self-improvement, which basically I think everybody needs in general. So anyway, thank you so much for following today, listening, audio, video, basically of The Problem Solver. Have a safe week, and we'll see you next week.